Hello, welcome to Sports World Have Your Say with me, Amanda Davies. Today it's been a tale of two cities and a tale of two men. Balotelli gets the blue half of Manchester bouncing but leaves Redknapp fuming.
He's kicked Scott Parker in the head purposely. You've only got to look at it, he's back-heeled him in the head.
Arsenal fans show their anger at Arshavin as Manchester United go home happy. We were told to expect the unexpected with this year's Africa Cup of Nations. Co-host Equatorial Guinea didn't waste any time. And the favourites are underway as well. The Elephants are charging. So on such a big day, we've got new hair from me and a great new guest in the studio as well. Welcome along to former Jamaican international and Notts County, Birmingham City and Derby County player Michael Johnson. He's raring to go, waiting to speak to you, as are the rest of the team. So don't wait any longer. Get in touch. There really is no excuse. Send us a message in any of the usual ways. Why not pick up the phone? Give us a call. +44 20 70 83 73 33. But before we go any further, let's get a summary of the latest news. So what have you been watching today? 4 of the top 5 in the English Premier League in action, or the opening weekend of the Africa Cup of Nations? I know there's a fair few of you who've had your eyes on both. We're going to start with the battle at the top of the Premier League, though. Manchester City pulled off an injury time win over Spurs with, yes, you guessed it, Mario Balotelli back in the headlines. And Manchester United followed that up with victory over Arsenal. Not quite the 8-2 from last time out. 2-1 it finished on Sunday. I'm pleased to say I've got Michael Johnson with me in the studio this week. Hassan is a young referee who joins us from Brighton. And Tola Keeley is an Arsenal fan who's got in touch from Johannesburg. Michael, let's start with you. Impact of today's results on the title race?
Well, it's a massive day, really. You know, obviously the two teams, Manchester United and Man City, obviously delighted to get 2 wins. And you know, you're probably looking at it now and you're thinking it's a 2-horse race. You know, Spurs had a great chance to close the gap, and obviously didn't get the points that they needed. So, you know, going into the second part of the season, there's still have a lot of game time. There's still a lot of football to play for, but I think it's going to be a 2-horse race now.
Yeah, and Hassan, United had the pressure going into their game, playing second today, but they answered it without a problem. How impressed were you by that?
I think they played well. I think they struggled at times, but I think it was a poor game in truth. But they finished it off. They did what they needed to do, especially when Van Persie equalised. But I think the real tale of that is the Oxlade-Chamberlain substitution. I don't think the Arsenal fans were too impressed with that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's welcome to the programme Stuart. He's a Spurs fan who's given us a call from Scotland. A 2-horse race then from now on, Stuart?
All right.
Hello, Stuart. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So where do you stand after that? A Spurs fan, pretty disappointed, I think.
Oh, definitely. I'm absolutely devastated as a Spurs fan. As I say, there's crucial moments for referees. And I thought Howard Webb's performance today was terrible.
Yeah, a lot of people saying that Mario Balotelli shouldn't even have been on the pitch in the final moments for the penalty. Hassan, what was your take on the incident with Scott Parker?
Zoomed angle.
Hassan, sorry, we just had a bit of problem with your sound there. Do you want to just start that point again? Yeah,
no problem. I just want to caveat by saying I only saw it from one angle, one replay, and from where I was, from the view that I had, Balotelli was running backwards and he was trying to get balance, and it does look like an unnatural kind of placing his foot on the floor, but I don't think you can see any intent there. I don't think he's meant to do it. I think he's lost balance. In my opinion, I think it's made worse as Balotelli. I don't think you can be 100% convinced he's tried to stamp on Parker's head there.
Yeah, actually, funny you should say that. Bush Mo has got in touch on Facebook and said if it was another player, the Tottenham manager wouldn't have called for a red card for Super Mario. But Shane Clapham has a different view. Typical Balotelli shouldn't have been on the pitch. Oh, well, he says he'll be suspended for a bit now. Colin has sent us a message on Twitter, though. He said he wasn't happy with Howard Webb's decision, said Balotelli shouldn't have been on the park to score it. He should have been sent off for his stamp on Parker. What do you think of that, Michael? Or was it just the fact that it's Balotelli that so much is being made of it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's because it's Balotelli, and he's always going to be in the headlines, you know, for obviously the wrong reasons this time. If you watch it carefully, you know, at no point during the sequence of movement does he look round to see where the player is. So it's not, you know, he's not done it on purpose. He's trying to regain his balance, and unfortunately his foot, which it happens, you know, it's happened to me, has caught the player. And obviously because it's Balotelli, everybody now jumps up and says, you know, he should have been sent off.
So Stuart, what do you think that means for the Spurs title challenge?
I think that's as you could possibly see out it. I mean, if you look at the next 6 games, I mean, Spurs have got to go away to Liverpool, away to Arsenal, and also home to Man United and away to Everton. When you look at Man City's, they've got Everton, Fulham, Villa, Blackburn, Bolton and Swansea. So I know at 6, if I was Harry Redknapp, I'd prefer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it don't always work out like that. I know you think because, you know, you're playing predominantly the lower league teams in the Premier League, but some of them teams, what you've mentioned, the Boltons and, you know, Swansea not out of it, they're going to be fighting for their lives. They need points. So whilst you're saying yes, you know, you think that it's over, it's not. It's still a lot of football time to be played yet. Still a long way to go.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Liverpool actually a little bit later on. They, of course, suffered a 3-1 defeat to Bolton on Saturday. But, Michael, just put it into a bit of context for us. As a player, Spurs came back from 2-0 down to 2-2. Those players on the pitch at full time look like they'd just lost the Champions League final. How difficult will it be to pick themselves up from that?
Well, they're going to be devastated, you know, because obviously they've came back from 2-0 down away at Man City, which is obviously no mean feat on its own. You know, to come back, you know, is a great achievement. But then, you know, 2-2, you know, you look, Defoe possibly could have gone on and won the game. And then in the final minute of the game, you know, they give away a penalty and you're thinking, God dear, not only have they lost the game, but potentially they're out of the title race. So all that implodes. And as a player, you look back on it and you think that 1 or 2 minutes has possibly not only decided the game, but your whole season.
Yeah, well, let's bring in Tolakili, an Arsenal fan from Johannesburg. A bad day for North London sides. Have you got any sympathy for Spurs today?
None at all, no. As an Arsenal fan, I can't have sympathy for them.
But so how do you see the title race panning out after those 2 games today and those 2 results?
Well, I think as has been mentioned already, I think it is now a 2-horse race. It is, I think, for Arsenal, top 4 is the best that we can hope for. And I'm not too convinced that Spurs can finish anywhere in the top 4. I think they've had a good run, but I think it's coming to an end.
You must be devastated as well, you know, as a lover of Arsenal, the way that they play football. I look now and I look at the forward line and I see, you know, Van Persie nearly got injured today. And at one point, you know, I'm there thinking, well, who is he going to put in now? You know, surely as an Arsenal fan, you would like Wenger to go out and possibly look to, you know, make a bit of movement in the transfer market, because if something happens to Van Persie, and I know Thierry Henry didn't play today, and I know he's back in the squad, but I don't think long-term he's going to be your answer.
Yeah, definitely. I think going into the game today, seeing the lineup for today, the substitutions, it was a bit thin.
Yes.
And yes, that was a very scary moment with Van Persie. You know, I thought, you know, the game's over, Van Persie's injured. Thank goodness he was okay and he came back. But you're absolutely right. If Van Persie goes, who's going to take over from him? Unfortunately, Andre Arshavin is not up to it, I don't think. Theo Walcott is so inconsistent right now. So it is a bit of an issue.
It was quite an incredible scene, actually, when Oxlade-Chamberlain was taken off for Arshavin to come on. The crowd's booing. Van Persie himself seemed incredulous at the decision. A lot of people have been tweeting about that. Alex, who says he's a fuming Arsenal fan via text, has said, hope Arshavin never represents Arsenal again, worse than playing with 10 men. Do you get that upset by him?
I do. I think Arshavin has had enough chances to prove himself and to gain his form, but he's completely failed. And another thing that angers me is Wenger's tolerance for players like that who just aren't performing week in, week out. I was completely amazed that Oxlade-Chamberlain, arguably the best player on the pitch tonight, was substituted for Arshavin, no less.
Yeah, Sway Kid has sent us a message on Sports World have your say Facebook page and says Arsenal and their manager seem not to learn. You can't win anything with lads. Somebody tell RVP to change clubs. And a couple of people are saying that now, that Arsene Wenger just hasn't got any new ideas.
Yeah, that's the talk around town, and I don't know if I completely agree with him. I think he's made a few mistakes here and there. I think his refusal to go into the transfer market is one of them. But I don't see an Arsenal without Arsene Wenger anytime soon. I just don't know who would replace him or which direction the team would take. But I do think it is very frustrating that he refuses to buy, even bring in players on loan. I think he says the squad is too big and who's going to pay the wages, but we just don't have the quality to field every single week.
OK, well, that's the view from the London clubs. Not a very happy Sunday evening for them. We're going to be talking about the view from Manchester in just a couple of minutes. But what were you watching today? Did you decide to watch the Premier League or did you go for the Africa Cup of Nations? Willie from Uganda has sent us a message saying he just couldn't choose. He said, I had two screens in front of me, one focusing on the Africa Cup of Nations, the other on the English Premier League. Couldn't miss any of these matches. Were you doing the same? Please do get in touch. All the usual ways available to us. But we will be back in just a couple of minutes. You're watching Sports World Have Your Say. It's advantage the Manchesters after what some described as the biggest day in the English Premier League season so far. Victories for Manchester City over Spurs, Manchester United over Arsenal. Loads of you have been getting in touch, reacting to today's games. Lesueo Lamamba has sent us a text or sent us a tweet, I should say, using the hashtag SWHYS, saying Harry Redknapp's been given a good lesson by City because he keeps attacking them over their wealth. Mustafa has got in touch saying, I don't believe it's a two-way race. Tottenham are certainly in it. City and United will surely drop points. Well, let's welcome Malik, a Manchester United fan from Mumbai, to the conversation. Gary from Ghana is with us as well. Malik, let's start with you. It was a game Manchester United had to win after the earlier 90 minutes, wasn't it?
It was a must-win situation for us. We had to win it, and there was no choice apart from pulling all the 3 points. And it would have been a case, had we dropped any points today, the 5 or a 6 point gap would have been very difficult to get hold of.
Yeah, and Patrice Evra said not spectacular, but good enough. And that sums it up pretty well, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe it was a game where United played 51% better than Arsenal, where Arsenal played only 49. But if you look at the entire game, we were the dominant one in the first half. Like Alex Ferguson said in the post-match interview, we deserved maybe getting 2 or 3 goals right in the first half. So it's not always the one who's created more chances wins, but we scored when it mattered. We created the pressures when it mattered the most. Nani and Valencia were, I think, amazing throughout the wings, and that's the substitution. The substitution in the first half spoke for itself of why Johan Dujuru was having such a hard time with dealing with Nani. OK, well, that's Malik's view. Here's what Sir Alex Ferguson had to say after the game.
It was a really disappointing result for Spurs today. They deserved better, really. But as I say, football's a funny game. Come March and April, you never know what's going to happen. But at the moment, we've got a few points clear of our rivals, the both of us, and we just have to keep on their coattails. That's all we need to do.
Yeah, Gary, keep on the coattails. Is that good enough for United, do you think?
Well, they need to keep on the coattails, but from an Arsenal point of view, I just feel that it was disappointing the way that the points were lost. Yes, indeed, Manchester United dominated for most of the proceedings, but I think that the talking points, as you mentioned in your intro, about Arshavin coming on for Oxlade-Chamberlain, sums up the whole mood at Arsenal at the moment. Arsene Wenger is sort of getting his priorities wrong. The players who need to be given a chance into the future are not, and I think he's basing too many of his decisions on sentimentality, and it's affecting the club. Michael, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, not only is Arshavin not playing well, so is Rosicky. And if you looked at the last goal there, you know, he was to blame. He made the the winger come by him far too easy for me. He got into the box and he squared it for the Manchester United player to tap it into an empty net.
We don't have a centre back.
Sorry?
United has a lot of players missing. We didn't have a premier centre backs playing. We got Jones out in the first quarter of the game. We still managed to pull off a very fine show.
And that's the thing with Man United. No matter what team Alex Ferguson puts out, the ethos of a good winning team over the years is that mentality that even when they're not playing well, they're still grinding out results, and that's what some of the other teams haven't got. The likes of Arsenal and Liverpool, that when they're not playing well, more often than not, they lose games. Whereas Man United, they'll stick in there even when they're not playing well.
The difference between the two sides.
On the other hand, if you look at the Premier League table now, it's a fair reflection of the way things are. I really don't think Arsenal can just convince their fans that they deserve to be in the top 4. Honestly, we don't deserve to be in the top 4. City are up there with 54 points. Arsenal are 5th with 36 points. And at this point, as an Arsenal fan, I don't think I'll be too annoyed if Newcastle overhauled us and went on top of us, on the Premier League table. Because the truth is that we are not playing like a championship side. And it's just what it is. There needs to be a change of orientation. Of course, Arsene Wenger should not go anywhere. He is the best man for the club, but something has to give.
Are you telling me then now that you're sitting there saying that you don't think Arsene Wenger and Arsenal will finish in the top 4?
That's what I'm telling you as an Arsenal fan. Because that's what I'm telling you as an Arsenal fan. Because look, I mean, like you talk about the mentality. We don't have that mentality anymore. Theo Walcott, with all due respect to him, he doesn't deserve to be in a team like Arsenal. He's been given too many chances. Arshavin has been given too many chances. For a player like Marani Shamak, I always say that he's played out of position, and so his place is also limited. If he wants to go back to France, let him go. Bring in reinforcements. I mean, the finances of Arsenal is something that we read over and over again. We know how healthy the club is. At least there are players in some of Europe's top 5 leagues who would gladly love to come to Arsenal for £2 to £3 million, or even for a 6-month loan deal, to just to help bolster the club to the top 4 position we want. But if indeed Wenger is not going for any reinforcement, then I'm sorry, we don't deserve to be in the top 4.
Your chairman, Peter Hill-Wood, said it wouldn't be a disaster financially if you didn't qualify for the Champions League, but financially is one thing. For the pride of the club and the name of Arsenal is a completely different thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And Peter Hill-Wood was speaking from a financial point of view. It will be a disaster. Okay, for the last, 10 seasons or so, we've consistently been in the Champions League. And if we are not there this time, I think that we still need the money in order to put together all our projects and everything. But as Wenger said, it will be a disaster because of the pride that we have in the club. But if he says it will be a disaster, you need to put things in place to make sure that the worst doesn't happen. And unfortunately, at the moment, we are not doing that. As one of the guys said, I mean, you saw the pressure on Van Persie today. He was so pressured that he had a goalpost all to himself and an opportunity he would have scored on any other day, and he just put it away. It sums up the mentality of the club at the moment. And the fans and the way they reacted to the Arshavin change as well sums up everything. I think if anybody didn't know about Arsenal and just dropped down from Jupiter or Mars and needed a picture of the way Arsenal worked, today's game was an example.
So, Lakili, do you agree with that?
I agree with most of what he said, yes. I don't think we are playing Champions League football. Some of our players really don't look up to it. I don't agree on the top 4 finish. I think it's still a long season. I think we still can't get back into it. But, Arsene Wenger's decision-making is a bit dodgy of late. We need help. We need reinforcements. We need a new plan. We need a new plan.
Some people suggesting that might have been the last meeting of Sir Alex Ferguson with Arsene Wenger. What do you think then, from what you're saying there?
Well, you know what? Okay, all right.
I think that's a bit too drastic. I don't think it's the last meeting, but I do think that we've got a lot of thinking to do.
Gary?
Yeah, you know what I think? I think that even the rivalry between Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger is no more. relevant. It's not there anymore. And it's not there anymore simply because Manchester United keep showing up season in, season out. Yeah. But unfortunately, Arsenal are not relevant in the context of the rivalry anymore. Arsenal are not relevant, and so there's nothing like a rivalry between Wenger and Sir Alex Ferguson. There's a rivalry when two teams are competing for something special for the top position. At the moment, it's only Manchester United who are competing for the top honors.
I don't think.
Carry on.
I don't think. Just to follow on what was just said, I really don't think that Manchester United and Sir Alex Ferguson see Arsenal as a threat anymore when it comes to the league title. I think years back it was always Arsenal, United, and now Arsenal don't even feature anywhere.
Yeah, well, Mamadou Ali Smith has sent us a message on Facebook. He's had a couple of likes as well, it has to be said. It's time for a change now. Wenger has done his best. He must be shown the exit door. And Kuli Adedeo, Gunners for life, but how would Wenger remove Oxlade for off-form Arshavin? Juliana Onyekin, Man United is back in the title race and will win. Then it's over for Arsenal and any other English club that wants the cup because it's ours. Is it City's to lose, Michael?
That's quite funny. Yeah, it's City obviously in the driving seat. They're there to be shot down. They're at the top of the table. And quite rightly so, they've got the most points, you know, but right Man United off at your peril because they've done it year in, year out.
Michael, we're going to stop you there because we're running out of time for this section of the show. We're going to be talking Liverpool, more on the title race and the Africa Cup of Nations in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. Hello, you're watching Sports World Have Your Say with me, Amanda Davies. It was billed as the biggest day of the English Premier League season so far, with 4 of the top 5 playing each other, and it's the Manchester clubs still on the march. So what does that mean for the title race? Lots of you already in touch on Twitter and Facebook and talking about the Africa Cup of Nations as well. Definitely been one of those days where you need more than one TV. We'd love to hear from you if you've been watching the Elephants kick off their campaign or if you've got an eye on the game between Burkina Faso and Angola. All the usual ways to get in touch available. The team are standing by. I've got Michael Johnson in the studio with me waiting to talk to you as well. But before we go any further, let's just pause for a summary of the latest news. You're watching Sports World Have Your Say with me, Amanda Davies. Loads of you have been sending us messages on Facebook and Twitter as we react to the success of the Manchester clubs against their North London rivals today. Losweo Lumumba has tweeted at BBC Sportswise saying Wenger would do well in a pool of money like Real Madrid. Alex Etue says, in spite of me being a United fan, I couldn't help but wince at Wenger's decision to sub Oxlade-Chamberlain for Arshavin. A lot of people echoing those thoughts. And Kev Henry says, as a Manchester United fan from Jamaica, thank God Arsene Wenger subbed Oxlade-Chamberlain, by far their best player. Glory, glory, Man United. Let's welcome Nazrat, who joins us on the phone from Peshawar in Pakistan. What's the point you'd like to make?
The referee was so unfair to Tottenham team. That tackle that was made by Balotelli, it was clearly made on the player's face, and Arsenal will find it harder cracking back in top 4 after their second successive defeat to a United team that didn't have their regular defenders, and that United side they showed they played like a champion team, and the decision of removal of Alex Chamberlain was totally gamble, and United took advantage of that and scored in after a few minutes.
Michael, do you think United put in the performance of champions?
Yeah, obviously so. Like I said before, even though they didn't play, as flamboyant as we all know Man United can, they still grind out the points. And, it's a lesson to all the teams what are chasing them that, Man United are going to be right in the curtain tails of Man City right to the death. So it's interesting to see how the remainder of the season is going to pan out between them two clubs. And, of course, if Arsenal can get into the top four.
OK, well, Nasrat, thanks for the call. Let's just have a look at the top of the Premier League table as things stand after those two games, some billing it the biggest day of the season so far. Manchester City still leading the way, 3 points ahead of United. Spurs in third, 8 points off the pace now with Chelsea in fourth. Arsenal missed the chance to close the gap on their London rivals there. 5 points behind them. Newcastle in sixth there. And Liverpool down in seventh. And that is where we're going to start, because pitch up or ship out was Kenny Dalglish's message after his side's 3-1 defeat to struggling Bolton. Liverpool have now won just 1 of 6 in the Premier League. How big a shock was that, Michael, that result yesterday?
It's a massive shock. You go into Bolton, at the bottom of the league, struggling for points. You're thinking this is a banker, one of them games where Liverpool will look to win and close the gap. And unfortunately, there was too many names yesterday what didn't perform, which obviously, Kenny Dalglish was really upset after the game and came out with some statements, and quite rightly so. It's a club.
Funny you should say that. Let's hear from him.
Everything that went wrong today, we can look in the mirror and say, as well as Bolton did, and without trying to take anything away from Owen Coyle's team, I think we've got to look at ourselves, and if that's the level they expect this football club to play at, then they'll not be here long.
Well, let's welcome Abdel, a Liverpool fan who has given us a call on the phone from Sudan. He's given us a call on the usual number. Why don't you do too? +44 20 70 83 73 33. Abdel, did you agree with Kenny Dalglish and those comments yesterday?
Well, he's the manager. He should be saying the truth to all the fans, the massive fans behind Liverpool. It has been the practice so far, really, for Liverpool, ashamedly, that they are losing to the lower clubs and doing very well.
Sorry, let me just clarify. Are you saying you support Kenny Dalglish there?
Well, he started from scratch and he made a team now, which has beaten Manchester United, has beaten Chelsea twice, has beaten Arsenal and drawn with them. And then he comes and sort of surprisingly to the low clubs he loses. I mean, this I do not understand. Perhaps he had the League Cup in mind against Manchester City next week. But it's still not excusable, really not.
Kenny was alluding to that, Michael, that he felt too many players had the cup games on their minds. Did you agree with that? Yeah,
and it does happen, a player who's looking at a semi-final and obviously the big game at the weekend against Man United, and he's probably thinking, I don't want to get hurt in case I get injured, I might miss that game. But, Liverpool's a football club where you can't afford to do that. You've got to play every game as it's a league title.
Hassan is with us as well. Hassan, do you think it's forgivable for players to have one eye on some silverware, possibly their best chance of silverware this season?
So obviously I'm not a player, but I would have thought that they would want to play well so they get in the team for the City game and the United game. But yeah, I can see how their eyes could get drawn to the prize. But you would have thought they would have tried to win the game yesterday, especially with the big squad that they have. They've got a fairly big squad. Sometimes
you don't necessarily go out with that intention, but there might be a 50-50 and you might look at that and think, oh, if I go into this one, I'm going to come out on the wrong side of it, which potentially you might miss the game. So certain tackles that you would make, you might not make. And this is the point what Kenny's talking about, where, certain players who didn't perform, the Liverpool futures might be in jeopardy.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. And it was against a Bolton side that are struggling at home. So I can see why he was upset, and understandably so.
Well, let me put this point to you, gents. Senyonjo Isaac has sent us a message on Facebook from Kampala saying Kenny is a disrespectful manager. He must get rid of himself first. He's made poor signings. Quite a few people saying actually Kenny needs to take a little bit of responsibility for this.
So for me as a Newcastle fan, I would have been really happy with the signings that he made during the summer. I don't think they've performed that well. I think he's tried to start a new team and they're just not gelling at the moment. They've had some good games. But yeah, I think it will take time. He's tried to do a lot over a short space of time. I think he needs a bit more time.
OK, so as a Newcastle fan, did you have one eye on Senegal yesterday in the Africa Cup of Nations?
I did, and I'm upset they lost, but kind of in a selfish way happy. I want our strikers back. So yeah, so Senegal, I think they've got a good chance, but unfortunately they had a surprise loss yesterday. And Ivory Coast won today, so we want Cheikh Tiote back as well, but I think they're going to win. I think they've got a good shot.
So what did you make of Newcastle's new signing, Papis Demba Cisse?
So I haven't heard much about him. I've done some YouTube and watching his videos. He looks a powerful striker. He looks quick. He looks exciting. I think everyone said is Bar leaving because he's calm, and I don't think so. I think it's a clever move on Pardew's behalf because he's brought his friend in. He's brought someone who will help him settle as well, and hopefully he'll keep Demba Ba in the club with him. So I'm waiting. Obviously they're back probably next month, but I think it'll be a powerful strike force. Yeah,
Michael, what do you think is the advantage for a club and for a country of having a strike partnership playing together so regularly?
Well, obviously the advantage is that they both know each other's game. And that's beautiful to watch. That boat, if one goes short, the other one might spin in behind, and vice versa. They're good friends as well, which obviously brings it even more closer. So for Newcastle, that's only a massive plus, and for the rest of the Premier League, it could be problems.
OK, well, yeah, the Senegal game, they lost to Zambia. That was one of the big shocks on the opening day of the Africa Cup of Nations, all kicked off on Saturday, of course. The hosts, Equatorial Guinea, got off to the most sensational start. They beat Libya 1-0. There's also been a couple of games today. The Ivory Coast, as Hassan was saying, they are the pre-tournament favourites. They've beaten Sudan 1-0. Burkina Faso, they are currently in action. They are up against Angola. These are the pictures from the Equatorial Guinea game from yesterday. Just the one goal in it from Balboa, a former Real Madrid player, nicknamed possibly now Rocky Balboa after his feat yesterday. Michael, how excited are you about this tournament and how it's panned out so far?
Oh, it's a great tournament to watch, especially when you see some of the successful African nation teams what are out of it, likes of Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa. And now, especially with the shock defeat of Senegal, it throws up who's going to win it. It's wide open. Nobody can really predict it. So it's one that everybody should watch with a keen eye.
Yeah, it's certainly been a day full of surprises so far. Gary is an Arsenal fan who we've been speaking to in Ghana. How's it been for you so far, Gary?
The Africa Cup of Nations, I've been particularly looking forward to it for months and months, and the fact that it started yesterday was a big relief for me because, I've been looking at some of these players to come and show what they've got, and also to see how open the tournament will be without the so-called big guns. So seeing yesterday that Zambia were able to outplay Senegal, who had been tipped. Yeah. I was particularly glad that the tournament is not as predictable as people would like it to seem. Yeah. And even today, Ivory Coast and Sudan, even though the Ivory Coast won, the consensus was that Sudan gave them a run for their money for the entire 90 minutes. And I think it's okay as well. Burkina Faso, like you've said, have also gone up 1-0 against Angola, who you would have tipped on an ordinary day to probably steamroll Burkina Faso. And so it's probably good for the African game and the African continent because then makes it so open and makes it a tournament with credibility.
OK, well, that is Gary's view. We're going to be talking about the Africa Cup of Nations a little bit more in just a couple of minutes. What do you think about how it's going to pan out after the first couple of days of surprises? Please do get in touch. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Sports World Have Your Say. We're talking the Africa Cup of Nations, which is, well, we were told it was going to be a tournament to expect the unexpected. It certainly seems to have been like that in the first couple of days. Pablo is with us from Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea, the co-hosts who produced a fabulous result in their opening game, beating Libya 1-0. I think you were at the game, Pablo. What was it like?
It was fine. It was fine. The opening of the game was so fine that
Surely
everybody
it was better
excited in
than
the stadium
fine.
yesterday.
You're hosting the Cup of Nations and your team pull off a surprise result.
Please come again.
Surely it was better than fine. Was it not really quite exciting?
Yeah, we were so excited because that is one time on the life it can happen. And that's why all the population, they were so excited.
And what is the mood of people like in Equatorial Guinea after that? Is the whole country wrapped up with hosting the tournament?
Yeah, because there were people coming from different points of the country. Some they come from Malabo, Tabata, interior, everywhere. So the stadium was full up of people. They were so hungry that they want to see the national team playing. And finally, they did that, and we scored the game. We won the game.
So I know the hopes had been for just one win in the tournament. You've already got that on the opening day. So what's the aim now?
I can hear you well.
I was saying, what are the hopes now for your team? I think initially you had just been aiming for one win in the tournament, but now you have that. Are you aiming to win the whole event?
Obviously, we are so motivated that we can win any of the 2 games we have forward to get on the next stage.
Okay, well, let's bring back Tolakili. South Africa not there, but how interested in the tournament are you, even though they're not there?
Very interested still. Obviously, it's disappointing that they're not there. I mean, it would have been that much more interesting if they were there. But I'm backing Ivory Coast all the way. I think this is their year. I think this is the year that they're going to win it. It's been a long time coming, so I think so far so good with today's win. So yeah, it's still an exciting tournament.
Yeah, Ivory Coast won 1-0. Didier Drogba with the goal, but Richie Nehans has sent us a message on Facebook saying, I think we should brace ourselves for more surprises. I just hope the Black Stars will take a cue from yesterday and take each match seriously. Let's welcome Michael to the conversation, joins us from Chicago. I think you're an Angola fan, is that right?
Yeah, I am. I'm really interested to see how Angola do this time around compared to how they did in 2010 when they were the host nation. I think being the host nation really sort of helped spur them out of the group stage, but then they kind of fell flat against a very good Ghanaian side, who actually I think this year is Ghana's year. I've been really impressed with their speed, especially at the 2010 African Cup of Nations, but also in the World Cup in South Africa. So I know a lot of people are going to Ivory Coast, and they certainly have a lot of talent, but I'm going to go with the Ghanaian side.
Okay, well, Gary is with us from Ghana. The team tipped as the favourites haven't done very well in this competition in the last few years. Do you like to hear the name Ghana up there?
Well, obviously, I mean, it's not that we haven't done too well. We placed 3rd in 2008 on home soil, then went to Angola and placed 2nd. And presumably, if the law of averages is on our side, 3rd, 2nd, there you expect a 1st. And I think that the pressure has been on the lads to deliver. Today, we were hearing from your BBC correspondent from Gabon and Equatorial Guinea that Ghana have sacked all journalists from the team hotel because the coach didn't want any disturbances, you know. And he also barred the journalists from observing training while they were in camp in South Africa. I think that all these points to the fact that there's the complacency that we saw in some of the other teams, especially in yesterday, Senegal's play, is not going to be in Ghana's team. But you never know. I mean, Ghana is in a tough group, Group D, Sudan and Guinea and Mali. You expect that they are going to give us top opposition. But the guys are young, the guys are hungry and ambitious, and I really, really fancy us getting at least past the quarterfinal stage. Beyond that, I don't know, because it's likely we might meet Ivory Coast or Senegal or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about complacency from some of the big teams. Dapo from Jamaica has said he's a big fan of the Africa Cup of Nations. The level of competitiveness is what makes the Africa Cup of Nations so special, especially now that powerhouses such as Nigeria, Cameroon and Egypt aren't in the competition. Michael, is there something to be said about the teams with the big name European players going to the Africa Cup of Nations? The players might be struggling to adapt.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know I've seen articles and questions raised about that in the past, about how difficult it is for some African squads who have all their players playing in the premier European leagues to have them come together for maybe a few weeks for a year and expect them to play as a unified side. To expect them to know where everyone will be in position. In some cases, some people feel that that may be a disadvantage for those African squads that have so many of their players abroad, and that they are so not used to playing with each other. In that case, it may favor some of our, dark horse squads where the players are more, they tend to play more in the domestic league, like we saw with Egypt, certainly in the past. That's been one reason people have used to sort of explain why Egypt has done so well. And why teams like Nigeria and Cameroon seem to fall flat on the big stage in the Africa Cup of Nations. But we'll see. I mean, Sudan didn't have many stars playing in the European leagues. I don't think they had any. And they certainly kept it close against the Ivory Coast squad that has a lot of that talent playing in Europe.
Well, let me bring in Michael, who's here in the studio. Michael, you played top-level football in England and then went to play for your international side, Jamaica. Was that a difficult shift to make at times?
Yeah, it can be. It's that sometimes what I found was the travelling. From travelling, 8-9 hours on a plane to go and across and play for Jamaica. But also when you get there, the problems that the heat brings as well. Obviously, being in England, you don't usually get the heat problems, which obviously was there in the Caribbean. And then it's adjusting to the style of players. That the home football players are playing in their local leagues, which is very different from when you're playing on the continent.
Papakwazi Ajiangpong has said, I never tipped Senegal. The pundits were just looking at their strikers when football is teamwork. Even Messi depends on a solid midfield, and Senegal was basically playing without a midfield yesterday. Early Philly Barungi says Zambian players didn't give any respect to the Senegalese players, hence a loss to Senegal was bound to happen. Let's bring in Boona, who I think is a Senegal fan. What was your take on that yesterday?
All right.
Hi, Boona, can you hear me in London?
Yeah, I'm hearing you well.
Yeah, what was your take on the Senegal result yesterday?
Oh, I think generally the team was overconfident, and moreover they underestimate Zambia, which is not a small team.
Can you see any improvement in the games coming up?
Oh yeah, really. They have now, right now, from now, they have to shake and try to win the 2 coming matches.
Garusa Olusugun has sent us a message on Facebook saying, I think African football has gone beyond names and past record. Congrats, Zambia and Equatorial Guinea, really missing Super Eagles. And Michael, it has to be said, actually, some of these smaller teams are causing the upsets, possibly because more of a team ethos, do you think?
Yeah, the thing which is beautiful about it is that there's a lot of youngsters and a lot of footballers over there who are using this tournament as a showcase for their skills. So predominantly the likes of, Drogba, what's over here, the Toure brothers over, they're here. They might see it as more of a break.
Michael, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to cut you off there because, as ever, we have run out of time. Plenty to discuss today and throughout the week. Please get in touch with us on Twitter and Facebook. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Goodbye.